toilet seat that looks like it's pretty clean has no stains on it, I'll give it a quick lick. Oh, and only in women's bathrooms. I try to only do it when I know it will be empty, or if I'm worried about getting caught, I have the excuse that he'll just say I thought it was a men's bathroom. Only reason I do it is because it gets me off. When I get home I masturbate to the thought, knowing the types of different women that have sat on there. I know it's a filthy habit, but I can't really get sick from it or anything, so I'm not too worried. I have my sister-in-law's iCloud password, and have been masturbating to her nudes for over a year. I will admit I've had a problem with porn for the last 3 to 4 years now. After I divorced my ex-wife, it quickly became an issue. I have my preferences, and tend to enjoy the barely legal aspects of porn. I know I'm definitely not the only one because I think it's in the top 3 most popular categories depending on where you are. My sister-in-law is 19 and has always been stunning. I've never considered pursuing her sexually, for obvious reasons, but mostly because as much as I like to look at beautiful women, I still love my wife and find her attractive. I am an IT contractor, so I'm usually the person in the family that people go to when their computers or cell phones are acting up. My sister-in-law needed help with a setting in her phone that was acting up, and she casually told me her Apple ID password. At the time I didn't think much of it, but then I did start to get curious. I know what young women tend to keep on their phones and wondered if my sister-in-law was no exception. I logged into her iCloud and lo and behold, a litany of dirty pictures and a couple videos, none taken during a time she was underaged. I made sure of that before I continued or saved anything. The rest sort of explains itself. It's something that I feel bad about, but kind of feel like the cat's out of the bag already, so what's the point? I do have my own little stash for my personal use, but I don't really check for new ones anymore. I am sexually attracted to animals. I have known that I am a zoophile since about 16. I have never engaged in bestiality because fortunately, a big part of me still knows this is wrong. I don't need material to be sexually explicit, simply seeing images of various animals is enough to excite me. I often masturbate to videos of animals mating or pictures of their genitalia. Don't really know what to expect, maybe someone here knows if treatment is possible and how to seek it? I'm not really interested in therapy as I don't think there's any talking through this. I donated blood even though I shouldn't, and feel terrible about lying to them. I'm gay, and have had protected sex with other men. There's a question that asks if you're gay, and I say no. I feel bad about it. Sometimes I think they know, and get a little paranoid. Just to clarify, the last time I had sex was a long time ago, and I'm compulsive about keeping clean. I've had STD checks, all clear, and after the HIV incubation window. My blood is O+, and I'm in the 10% of people without a certain antibody, can't remember the name, which means my blood can be used for babies. They sometimes ring me up and ask me to go in the next day. I have destroyed the relationship between me and my stepdaughter and I don't deserve to have it repaired. Backstory: I'm 36 as I write this and my stepdaughter, we'll call her Kay, is 15. I married her mom when I was 29 and she was 8. In total I have 4 stepchildren aged 16, 15, 13, and 11, all girls except the youngest. I have a biological daughter who is also 13 but she lives out of state and I haven't seen her since she was about 6. I am sure you all know what is coming, but I will preface it to say that no, I have never touched her. Now on to the horrible details. My wife and I are very overprotective of our children, my wife more so than I am. We did not let our kids have email accounts or Facebook accounts until they were at least 14 and our younger 2 still don't have them. My oldest is every parent's dreams of a child. Responsible to the NTH degree, 4.3 GPA, number 1 of 394 students in her class for 3 years straight, etc. Kay on the other hand is the exact opposite. Rebellious, selfish, talks back, can't be counted on to do anything, constantly lies, basically a typical teenager. When we started allowing them to go online I installed a spyware program on the computer in order to monitor their internet activity without their knowledge. Kay repeatedly created Facebook accounts without our permission and against our rules and tried to hide them from us, but because of my software I always knew. She found out about the software after we confronted her about the Facebook accounts and she lost all computer privileges for quite some time. Once she earned them back, and we allowed her to have a Facebook, she was very careful about what she said on the computer while at home because she knew about the software. Kay never talks to her mother or me about anything going on in her life, everything is a huge secret and we never know anything that she does or says. I got a stupid idea to create a fake girl online in order to become her friend and hopefully get some insight into what was going on in her life that she kept so secret from us. I know, it was a stupid, dumb idea and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. So I made friends with Kay and started talking to her and it was going okay for a while. After about 6 months she started to suspect something was fishy and in order to save myself I created another person, the fake girl's cousin, and introduced them. Kay had had 2 serious crushes on boys that happened to have the same name, we'll say Josh, so naturally I named my new boy persona Josh in order to give myself an in. Kay is very starved for attention because she is always in trouble at home because of the things that she does, and she and Josh hit it off almost immediately. Within weeks they were dating across the internet and I was in essence my 14-year-old stepdaughter's boyfriend. Things escalated quickly and at one point we ended up having cyber sex while I was at work and she was home with one of her girlfriends. She was using her girlfriend's phone to chat with me so that her conversations couldn't be monitored on the computer. As horrible as it is, I really enjoyed the encounter and masturbated ashamedly in my office the whole time. As it was bound to happen I got caught by my wife. She had gone through my phone and found the email accounts I had made. She was beyond pissed, and I can't blame her and I deserved every ounce of what she gave me and more. I was also caught by Kay when she had one of her friends over and they were emailing me from the friend's phone and, unknown to me at the time, watching me as I responded on my phone. She now hates me, rightfully so, although she doesn't have solid proof it was me. I don't understand why my wife didn't leave me immediately, she certainly should have in order to protect her daughter. My relationship with Kay has been utterly destroyed and I have no hope of ever repairing it, and I don't deserve to have it repaired either. I am extremely attracted to her and find myself watching her and fantasizing about her in ways that no grown man should. It's just her though, I don't think of any other underaged people like this and I don't know what to do. I should leave. But I can't. I'm weak. I'm sick. I'm sorry. And there's nothing I can do about it. My parents and I caused her death. I hate them and myself for it. I honestly don't know, but I feel like I want to share this today. I've been staring at a bottle of cheap whiskey for far too long now. Anyway, this all happened almost 6 years ago and obviously the account is a throwaway. I use Reddit normally and I love browsing this sub so I'm confident there can be some understanding here, or so I hope. So let's rewind the clock back 6 years to a time when my sister and I were 16. Wish I could huh? Anyway. My sister Jane was the sweetest person I've ever met. Well, I didn't think that highly of her at the time. Besides being sweet and nice to almost everyone, she was a perfect tomboy, you know, short hair, boy clothes, interested more in cars than dolls if you get my gist. This has all happened over a longer period of time. She started with a more boyish look when she was 13, my parents thought it was a phase and told her to dress normally. After many, many fights they gave up and allowed her to dress that way. Those were some terrible few weeks, many slaps, beatings and a lot of yelling from my dad and constant crying from my mom. Now I know the reason was they didn't want their daughter to be seen as one of those freaks. My parents are not religious, at least not more than your average family. They never forced their beliefs onto us. I got into the atheism craze when I was in my early teens and they didn't care, just told me not to tell people around. A lot of our family is religious. My dad was a police officer, pretty high ranking as well. He loved his job and was quite liberal in my opinions, extremely inclusive of other races and whatnot. He was also really lax with the rules. He often showed us his gun and on my granddad's estate and farm he told us to shoot with a similar gun while making sure we understand proper gun handling, care for the weapon, how to reload, not to put a finger on the trigger and to never ever aim at anyone. The issues of gay and trans people came up very rarely but I remember someone on TV speaking about it, or maybe it was a movie I can't recall, but both of my parents were disgusted just by the thought. This was when I was 11 or 12. I asked about it, like the curious little I was, and my parents explained to both myself and my sister about what a gay is and transgender person is and so on. They outright said that those people are sick and should be in a hospital, same like pedophiles. We already had the talk about not going to people's cars etc., or murder. My sister didn't really react but I did jump on that. With my friends we made these dumb stories and included a lot of gay and trans characters getting killed or being locked somewhere in prison. My parents praised me for being creative after hearing a pretty long story for a 12-year-old. Anyway, a year later my sister started with the tomboy stuff and I didn't think of it much, but fast forward 2 years, we're both newly 15 and it clicks in my brain, why my parents were so opposed to it and what my sister really was. She was transgender. I felt mad at myself for even thinking my own sister could be something so vile. I asked her several times and every single time she told me to screw off or just refuted it. Few months passed and our relationship turned sour. We barely talked. I couldn't look at her, and whenever I started talking, Jane would make every effort to leave the room as soon as possible. Then came a night, I was staying up late playing World of Warcraft after my friends logged off. I went to grab a drink from the kitchen. To go down the stairs I always passed her room. I heard a sound. It was so strange, like a cry of a weird creature. Scared, I opened the door. I saw her, crying on the floor. The sound was her trying to be quiet. For that short moment everything was gone. I ran to her asking what's happened, helping her up, sitting her down on her bed and giving her a hug. It was the first moment we shared after such a long time. She told me the truth. She was afraid, hurt and trans. I don't think I've ever been more conflicted than in that moment. I hated that she was trans, I hated all trans people for infecting her with the virus, with the illness. But she was my sister, someone I shared so much, who was there for me when I was crying. I couldn't let go, and so I just held her and stayed there through the night. None of her words reached me. She fell asleep that morning, and because it was Saturday I put a blanket over her and let her sleep. She slept until 2 p.m. when my mom woke her up with a yell. She looked at me, with red eyes, mouthing "thank you." I remember that clear as day. After lunch I told her I want to talk, and that we did. I suggested we tell our parents that she is trans, and they can get treatment for her and she can be cured. That was the moment it all began to go downhill. My mom overheard. "Are you trans?" She screamed and called for Dad. Jane kept silent, so they turned to me asking if she admitted to it. I nodded. My father beat her behind with a belt, leaving a few cuts. They kept screaming, Jane kept crying, and I just stood there. Our 16th birthday came. Over the few months I did warm up to trans people and read a lot online, asked people and used a few forums and message boards to talk to trans people. My parents didn't want to hear a word of it though. Jane and I were born on the 14th of February. I liked the date for 2 reasons. It was like the whole world was celebrating my birthday. I got a cake and a ton of gifts, and just like every year I bought something small for Jane. This year I was conflicted, but I decided to buy one anyway. It was this adorable huge teddy bears. Not your standard Valentine's one, but a proper, and expensive, teddy. And just live every year our parents had worked the day after. I couldn't stomach it and give Jane the gift on the 14th as I planned. Even my parents didn't celebrate her birthday, just mine. I thought what a great idea to give it to her on the 15th when our parents aren't there. I felt really bad for her, and so I wrote a letter. Tried my best at proper cursive. It was a mumbling BS of how I still love her and our parents don't understand. I ended it with, "I'm glad to have you as my brother." I remember writing those words, feeling kinda weird but happy at the same time. After they left I opened the door, but he wasn't there. I put down the bear and put the letter on his huge fluffy head. I left the room and went to play World of Warcraft again, waiting for him to find it. I did hear the door to his room open and close. I think it was almost an hour before a sound went through my headphones. A sound so loud my ears were ringing. It took me a couple of seconds to put one and one together to realize it was a gunshot. There it was, that thought of what happened. I didn't want it to be true. I wanted to run, but at the same time I